Welcome back, everybody. Another episode of Tiger Talk. Today, I'm fortunate to be joined by Josh Jordan, LSU assistant coach and recruiting coordinator. Coach Jordan, I appreciate you taking the time for us today.
No, man, always great to talk LSU baseball. It's baseball season, and just getting a chance to talk baseball from Marriott here in Texas. So on the road recruiting, always working.
Always recruiting, right?
Always.
So y'all finished up a pretty successful road trip. Sounds like you're still on the road, but everybody else is heading back down to Baton Rouge. How would you grade the team's performance over the last 3 weeks of the season?
Well, I think I would say our biggest challenge, or thing we issued to our team to focus on was together and toughness. And I think over this first 3 weeks we've shown that. I think this past week was a real indicator of that. We had a game that was on a Monday that had been moved due to weather, which made it a 5-game week, which originally wasn't on the schedule. And then we played that game, got on a plane, and came to Texas and played some really good opponents here, at neutral sites. And you look at this week and say, man, that's a really good week. And you like to think that, we can learn from this past week and take what we learned and use that in the future going forward and to conference play, which is ultimately what this time of year is about, is preparing you for conference play. And you know what, we have 14 teams in the SEC in the top 25 this week. So we know that obviously we're going to play a lot of good opponents down the road, and this league is so good, and it's a grind, and you take it week by week, game by game, pitch by pitch.
Yeah, you guys have done this kind of road trip every year, gone out to Texas and played either, Frisco or Houston or Round Rock. How important is it for the team to kind of get away from Alex Box and play some of these, premier teams?
Well, there's no better place to play in the country than Asst Stadium. I've said that a lot, posted that a lot on social media. We have the best fans of college baseball. The nice thing about playing LSU is Tiger fans travel. I mean, and we were in Frisco this week, and the crowd was unbelievable. Purple and gold. Stadium was packed. Same thing in Arlington on Wednesday night. But to answer your question, I mean, it's really important because there's so much in terms of chemistry, bonding, and togetherness that can happen when you're on the road. There's kind of a singular focus. Everybody's together in a hotel. Meals are together. A lot of time spent with each other. And I think this group really enjoys being around each other. I think you saw that maybe yesterday when guys ran up in the right field corner, started jumping into the lazy river. And so this team is fun. I think they enjoy being around each other. This type of a trip definitely, again, prepared you for SEC play and for postseason play, because ultimately, that's, again, what we're trying to work towards. Is everything, everything's by design. Coach Johnson does an unbelievable job of structuring the schedule the way it is, so it prepares us for what's to come. And I think we're in a good place from that standpoint. And it's fun getting on the road with the guys. It gives me a chance too to be around them a lot more in a non-practice, kind of training session environment. And we have a lot of good times. They keep me young.
Josh Pearson is somebody who had just a phenomenal weekend. I mean, MVP of the Frisco Classic. He was kind of a doubles machine this weekend. Can you talk a little bit about what he means to this team?
Well, I think let's start with just what I think LSU means to him. I think it's really important for him to be an LSU baseball player. He grew up loving this place. It's in the blood. It's in his family, as everyone knows. And so I think LSU is really important to him. And that's a great starting point, because then you take a guy who's a really good player, who's a good baseball player, who knows how to play the game. He is, in my opinion, arguably our most instinctual baseball player on the base pass. He does an unbelievable job in the outfield defensively. And then he has something about him when, it's time for him to do something big, he steps up to the moment. And he's kind of an old school LSU player, growing up in Louisiana, wanting to be part of this. And so when he gets those moments on the big stage, he seems to deliver. And I just love the fact that how good of a baseball player he is, and his IQ, and how he approaches the game. And some days, because of matchups and whatnot, he may not be in the lineup. But when his number's called in a pinch hit situation, or maybe the next day when he's back in the starting lineup, he's ready. And he's fun to be around. I've had a chance to be around him now for 3 years. And I made the comment my first fall here that outside of, guy named Dylan Cruz, and I loved everybody on the 23 team. But outside of a guy named Dylan Cruz, that first ball, Josh Pearson was my favorite player. I just liked the skill set and what he brings to the table. And so, I'm excited that he's having this level of success because this place is important to him. And we wouldn't be where we are without him.
Yeah, through the first 3 weeks of the season, this looks like this may be y'all's best defensive team that you've had, at least since Jay's been here. What is it about this team that makes them so good defensively? I mean, you think back to like the relay that Josh had, in the outfield, and then the Milam Dickinson flip, to put out first. What kind of goes into that?
Well, one, it takes a different type of athlete to be good defensively. I think we have some guys that are good movers. I think we have some team speed, but I think every guy that you see the interchangeable parts, they're really good athletes, really good movers. And so that's the first step. And then ultimately, all good defenders in any sport, whether it be, in Tiger Stadium on a Saturday night or Asst Stadium on a Friday night, all really good defenders want the ball. And this group, when I see them take that first step and they pursue the baseball, they look like a group that wants the baseball, wants to make a play. And that's the foundation for being a great defensive player. And so, in communication, we try to emphasize to every single guy on the roster, whatever position he played, the importance of communication. That's the foundation of a great defense. And I think we're doing a really good job of communicating with each other in the pre-pitch process, meaning knowing where to be. Coach Simpson, he does an unbelievable job with the rest of the staff. We in our staff meetings of making sure defensively we're lined up in a really good position where our guys can be successful and playing good defense too. I think we have the players that want to be good defenders, and I think our staff wants our team to be a good defensive team. And in terms of preparation, Coach Johnson challenges us to make sure that we're putting guys in position to be successful where they're supposed to be. And we spend a lot of time in the staff meetings working on that. And so I think you're seeing a blend of both of those two things when you see our defense. And you got to have a little guts too. You got to have a little showmanship, and that's a heady, gutsy kind of play, and that Danny makes there, and then Milam's right there on the spot, Johnny on the spot, and the Pearson's play. I mean, I didn't know what a great job he did cutting that ball off in the gap until I actually saw the replay. And so that great play and that play at the plate, and that throw Milam made wouldn't be possible if Josh Pearson doesn't do a really good job in the gap there of catching that ball and cutting it off the way he did.
Yeah, on the pitching side, who's really stood out to you so far this season? I mean, last time we talked, you raved about the pitching depth, and that's really shown up so far this season. But who's really stood out to you?
Yeah, I think obviously let's start with Friday night, and that's Kate Anderson. I think a lot of like for any pitching staff, a lot of kind of how the weekend's going to go for a pitching staff is dictated kind of how that Friday night guy does. And Kate does an unbelievable job of setting the pace and setting the tone heading into the weekend. In terms of everything, the preparation, how he goes about it, very meticulous, very smart, very methodical about how he does his work. And then you look at a guy like Zach Cowan. We keep putting him in a position where he does an unbelievable job in terms of his role. And he's a little bit of a Swiss Army knife. He's a guy I think you can bring in as a stopper, that type of a role. You can see him come in and record 9 outs for you. I can see him getting starts in the future. And he's definitely good enough to close a game as well. And Kason Evans has been really, really impressive. As you know, that stuff is electric. And so he's been impressive. And William Schmidt and Maverick Rizzi, Benj, a lot of those guys have all been really, really good. And I know I'm leaving somebody out because, again, we could spend all afternoon, in my opinion, talking about how good our pitching staff is and how much better they're going to get because there is some growth that needs to happen for some of these guys. And, again, this week, this traveling and being outside of Asst Stadium was a great opportunity for them to mature and grow, but also gave us a chance to see areas where they have to improve because they're not a finished product yet. Chase Shores, I mean, he's right now, I think he's 3-0 on the mound. But that being said, I think he would tell you he doesn't feel like maybe he's thrown great yet. But the guy's throwing 100-mile-an-hour fastball yesterday. And so there's a lot of big stuff, a lot of big talent, and a lot of care in terms of wanting to get better. And these guys want to get better, and I think they will. And so I think the best days for us on the mound are even ahead of us.
Yeah, you mentioned Casey Evans there. He's been so dominant in his outings. What makes him such a good fit for that closer role? Because it seems like that's kind of where he's been, where he's been put. I don't know if maybe that's the role he's carved out for himself or not, but what makes him a good fit for that role?
Well, I think number one is if you know Cason's history, he came in here a little bit more, but he was a two-way player, played shortstop for his high school. He was a coach's son. I know he was coached hard, and so he understands the game. He understands what it takes because he was coached that way. Again, growing up in the coach's household, you kind of just know some things that other guys maybe aren't privy to and don't have the exposure that you have as a player, as a coach's son. And so he has a level of toughness and a little bit of a mean streak. And he thinks his stuff is good, and it really is. The future is very bright for him. And another guy that I kind of missed moments ago that I got to emphasize is Anthony Ianson. The start he had on Saturday wasn't really indicative of the type of pitcher he is, but he went out there with what I would think is probably his C or D game. Coach Esky could speak more to that, but he wasn't sharp early on, but he settled in and he was really, really good. And as he started putting up zeros, our offense started coming along. And that to me was really reassuring because in SEC play, you're going to have to be able to win games in a lot of different ways. Get up big, play a tight game late, come from behind. I think our team here early on in the season is showing that we can play in whatever type of baseball game presents itself. And so, again, and a lot of that, how you go as a team, it all starts on the mound. And again, I like our pitching.
Yeah, one pitcher we haven't seen yet is Gavin Guidry. Is there any update there on is he going to if he might be available this week or anything?
Yeah, we'll get back into town and we'll figure that piece of it out and kind of see and get an update. And I know Coach Johnson he's a guy that's really important to this team. And I know Coach Johnson's focused and he and Coach are in great communication about kind of the steps and where he's at. And again, I don't know because I'm not really with the team and not in town, but I know Coach Johnson's on top of that because, not many guys you look at that you can have in a program who had a chance to close out a regional, close out a super regional, and close out the national championship game. And so he has a lot of experience that we're going to need as we head into SEC play. And there's no doubt in my mind he'll be ready to take the ball when he's able to.
One of the guys you brought in this offseason was, Danny Dickinson, and he's in the top 15 in the country in RBI. He's kind of been hitting right behind Jared Jones. I know Coach Johnson kind of made the comment after one of the games this weekend of, go ahead and keep walking, Jared Jones. We'll just keep
exactly because you have a dangerous guy behind him in Danny Dickinson. And, Danny, he plays with a chip on his shoulder. He plays with an edge. And I remember when he committed, I made the comment to him that the Tiger fans are going to really love the way he plays and the edge and the toughness and the grittiness in which he plays. And I've been really pleased with how he's played on the offensive side, but I've also been really pleased with how he played on the defensive side of baseball. You mentioned the glove flip earlier. Then he made two other diving plays this past weekend. And so from a defensive standpoint, he's in the right position. I think as people see how complete of a player he is playing at this level, it's only going to help him in his future in baseball. And so I'm really happy for Danny and how he's competing. And again, he wants to win. Make no mistake about it. And I'm glad you have a guy that's as talented as he is, who cares about his teammates, but also winning is important to him. And that's going to bode really, really well for him in his career long term. I believe that.
Is this the kind of player you thought he would be when he got here? Or is he kind of even surpassed maybe your expectations?
I Coach Johnson had a chance to see him in the Cape, and then I went over to see him in Cary, North Carolina, and Greensboro, North Carolina, and with Team USA, and I really left there feeling like, man, Danny's the type of guy that you can fall in love with because of his style of play. He can hit a home run like he did on Wednesday night, in Arlington, and then he can turn right around and lay down a drag bunt. And so you look at it, he's a very dynamic player who can do a lot of different things to beat an arm. And so when I looked at that and said, man, this type of edge, this type of versatility, this type of athlete is something we needed in our program. And again, Coach Johnson, myself, Coach Simpson, and the rest of the staff was excited when he committed.
How would you evaluate the catching position so far this season? Had Luis seems to be getting most of the reps behind the plate. Has he really separated himself from the other guys?
Quite honestly, no. I like where we're at, and my thoughts on the catching position really hasn't changed. It's going to take all of them. 5 game weeks. You start looking at that type of workload. No one guy's going to be able to handle that, and it's going to take all of them. I love the development and where Cade Aaron B is at. He called a really good ball game the other night, in my opinion. You can't sit there and talk about how great Anthony Ianson was in terms of evolving and settling in over the course of that game, and then not talk about the job Cade Aaron Beatty was doing with him behind the plate, from a catching standpoint. And so he had a really good ball game that night. He missed one pitch in the zone because we have ways of measuring and evaluating, and we have the data to look at it. And he missed a splitty that was up in the zone, which is a tough pitch to get called for a strike. When that split finger that's left up is tough, it kind of floats in there. And I thought Cade called an unbelievable ball game. And the future's very bright for Cade. And Luis, again, he complements Cade very well. And Cade complements Luis very well. And so, and then you got a guy like Blaze Priester you can bring in, and that guy can run a ball out of the ballpark at any moment off any arm in the country, and can settle in and do some catching. So as the season gets longer, more and more you're going to see different guys behind the plate for us because we're going to need them to be fresh come postseason play.
Yeah, there's been a lot of lineup changes, a lot of talk about all the lineup changes. In right field, at DH, at the catching position. How do the guys handle that?
Great. That goes back to the toughness and togetherness piece. Number one, it takes an unbelievable amount of toughness individually to put the needs of the team above your own. And I think our guys have done that really, really well. I think that's why our record is what it is, why we're 11-1. And so they've done an unbelievable job of doing that. And then obviously togetherness. When you're starting to do that and your teammates start to see you, being a selfless player, and being willing to get outside of yourself and put the team above in front of you, then other guys are willing to buy into that too. So I'm really happy with kind of the attitude and the approach, because again, not one player on this roster is going to help us win a national championship, and that's the goal. As you know, here at LSU, it's going to take everybody. It's going to take a collective effort, everybody on staff, everybody on the roster to make that happen. But this is a very driven group. They're taking it one pitch at a time. And right now I know this group focuses a lot on North Dakota, who we have coming in. So,
who have you seen emerge as really like the leaders of this team, from a player standpoint?
Well, I think, from a pitching standpoint, I think, Cade Anderson's a guy that's a leader, takes the ball on Friday night, models it. But also I think he does a good job of holding guys accountable in terms of helping them understand what they need to do to be successful and what it takes to be an LSU baseball player. And then you have guys that, other guys that complement that too. Even some young guys like Kason Evans. I think Kason's an unbelievable leader. He has leadership qualities. And so on that pitching staff, we have a lot of guys that do a lot to make sure our team is going in the right direction. But I'd say Cade probably from that standpoint. From a positional side standpoint, obviously I think guys like, Jared Jones, who's been in the program, Stephen Milam, have done an unbelievable job of leading and making sure guys mindset-wise are in a good place. And then you have guys like Danny Dixon who come in and who are more vocal guys and play with a little bit of an edge, and it's a little more in terms of visually, like, man, they're here to win and get behind me type of guys. I think Danny falls into that category too. And so, but we have a lot of guys, and the really great teams that I've been part of, even dating back, you look back to 23, you have a lot of different guys that are leading. It shouldn't be one guy. It shouldn't be one voice. When you have a collective unit, like I think we do, that have togetherness, a lot of guys can be vocal leaders. Number two, they look around and see guys doing things the right way. It's just easier to fall in line, and we have a lot of guys doing that too. I'm really pleased with the culture and where we're at right now. I think Coach Johnson will feel the same way about in terms of togetherness and toughness and doing what we've asked him to do.
Well, Coach, I appreciate your time. I know you got to get back on the road, get back to recruiting.
Yeah, got to head to batting practice here in just a moment. So,
all right. Well, we won't take up any more of your time, and good luck this week. I got another 5-game week, and then SEC play starts.
Heck yeah, man! It's fun. This is what you sign up for, and appreciate you taking time to chat with me and have me on. And like I said, man, we'll see you. And if you need anything, let me know.
All right, thanks.